In this video, we're going to work on examples 3.8 to examples 3.13 in your book. If you'd like to follow along, open the Chapter 3 classwork.xlsx workbook from My Courses and click on the EX 3.8 worksheet tab. The first thing we're going to look at in example 3.8 is data visualization through conditional formatting. The first thing that we're going to use is we're going to use data bars. So to use data bars, to get them in separate colors, just like we see at the bottom of page 64, I'm going to select the range B5 down to B16. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the Home tab. In the Styles group, kind of on the right-hand side, there's a button for conditional formatting. I'm going to choose Data Bars, and I'm going to choose the first one under Gradient Fill, the blue data bar. Now I'm just going to repeat that process for columns C, D, E, and F. I'm going to select the range C5 through C16, click Conditional Formatting, Data Bars, and now I'm going to choose the second one, the green one under Gradient Fill. Select D5 through D16, Conditional Formatting, Data Bars, choose the third one, red data bar. Select E5 through E16, Conditional Formatting, Data Bars, choose the orange data bar, the fourth one, and finally for product E, select the range E5 to E16, click Conditional Formatting, Data Bars, and they wanted us to do the purple data bar for the last one. So now you're going to see that our chart looks exactly like the one at the bottom on page 64. Now let's move on to our color scales. So to insert our color scales, we're going to select the range B20 through F31, making sure we're still on the Home tab. In the Styles group, Conditional Formatting, Color Scales, and in the book they chose the green, yellow, red, but you can choose whatever color scale that you would like to make it match the picture in the book at the top of page 65. I'm going to choose the first one, the green, yellow, red color scale. Now we're going to use icon sets, so I'm going to scroll down. To use icon sets, I'm going to select the range B35 down to F46. Still on that Home tab in the Styles group, Conditional Formatting, Icon Sets, and they use the directional arrows. So I use the first one, the directional arrows, 3 arrows colored, and we've now visualized the same data set using 3 different schemes. Now we're going to move on to example 3.9, where we're going to insert spark lines. If you can't see the EX 3.9 worksheet tab, you can click the 3 dots, the ellipsis right after EX 3.8, and you'll see the next couple of worksheet tabs. Or you can use the arrows on the left-hand side of the worksheet tabs to scroll through all the different tabs without changing the active tab. So make sure that you're on the EX 3.9 worksheet tab. Now we're going to insert some spark lines. The first thing that we're going to do is insert column spark lines. So we're going to click Insert, and in the Spark Lines group we're going to click Column. In the Data Range, backspace through the A1, select the range B4 to F15. Our location range is going to be G4 to G15. Once you do that, click OK, and we can see our bar graph, and you can always make the cells column G wider, or even make the rows thicker. If you want to make the rows thicker, you can just select the rows, click on the gray 4, and select all the way down to the 15, and then just change the height. I'm going to undo that to make it easier to see, but notice how much better the spark lines look when you change the height. I'm just going to undo that to make the next piece easier. Now we're going to insert line spark lines on line 16. So I'm going to click Insert once again. In the Spark Lines group, I'm going to choose Line, my data range, B4 to F15, and the location range, I'm just going to backspace, and I'm going to select the range B16 to F16. Just click OK, and we now have lines, and again we could make line 16 a little bit wider, a little bit taller, so we can see our lines a little bit better. Now we're going to move on to win-loss spark lines. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to calculate our percent change from one month to the next. To calculate our percent change, I'm going to click in cell K5, which is the first one. You can't calculate a percent change for January because there's no change from January to January. But we can calculate our first percent change from January to February. All we're going to tell Excel to do, making sure that I'm in cell K5, I'm going to type an equal sign and then open my parentheses. I'm going to tell Excel to take the February number, so I'm going to click on J5 and then tell it to subtract, type a minus sign and click on J4. I'm going to close up the parentheses and then I'm going to type a / for division, and I'm going to tell it to divide by J4. So I'm going to tell Excel to take February minus January, get that answer, and then divide by January's number. Notice I'm using all relative cell references, so as I copy that formula down, Excel is just going to take the current month minus the previous month, divide by the previous month, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm going to hit Enter. I'm going to click back on cell K5. It'll make it a little bit easier if I format this cell before I copy it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in the number group, making sure that I'm on the Home tab. In the number group, I'm going to click the percentage, the button that looks like percent style, and then 2 buttons to the right, increase my decimal once and then twice. Now I can just double click that fill handle and copy that formula all the way down to December. To put in our win-loss spark lines, I'm going to click in cell K16, click Insert, Win-Loss. My data range is K5 through K15, and I'm going to accept my location range of K16. I'm going to click OK, and there are my win-loss spark lines. Let's try this again to make sure that we can do it correctly. So I'm going to click in cell M5. I'm going to enter the formula to calculate the percent change. I'm going to tell it to take February's number, subtract January's number, and then divide by January's number. So equals, open parentheses, click on cell L5, and then subtract, click on cell L4, close up the parentheses, /, click on L4, equals, open parentheses, L5 minus L4, close up parentheses, / L4, hit enter, click back on the cell, format it correctly, making sure that you're on the Home tab, number group, percentage style, increase once, increase twice, and double click that fill handle. Click in cell M16, insert, click the insert tab, win-loss spark lines, data range, M5 through M15, accept the location range of M16, click OK, and we have now inserted our win-loss spark lines. Now let's move on to example 3.10, where we're going to create an Excel table. I'm not personally in love with Excel tables, but there are many things that you can do with Excel tables, including some pretty neat calculations that don't involve relative and absolute cell references. So we're going to click on the EX 3.10 worksheet tab. In order to change this to a table, we have to click on any cell within the table. So any of these cells that I'm clicking on are going to work. It would not work if I clicked on cell D1 or N3 or anything outside of the table. So randomly, I'm going to click on cell D9. I'm going to click Insert, and under the first group tables, I'm going to choose Table. So notice it selected the data range for the table automatically. I can scroll down to make sure that it's actually selected the correct range. I must make sure that my table has headers is checked, otherwise row 3 would be the first line of my data, and I'm going to click OK. Now notice I have all sorts of down arrows over here. So with the down arrows we can filter the list, which we're going to talk about before. But now let's talk about doing some calculations with the table. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to sum all of our checking account balances. So in order to sum all of our checking account balances, we're going to scroll all the way down. Notice now that we have a table, it's automatically frozen the titles, so we can, even as we scroll down, I'll use the scroll bar, even as we scroll down we can still see which column has which header. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of my list. I'm going to click in cell B429, and I'm going to type equals SUM, open the parentheses, I'm going to type table, and notice when I type TA, table 1 comes up, so I'm going to double click where it says table 1. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type an open bracket. It's the key that's right just to the right of the letter P. Make sure that you don't type your shift, don't hold down your shift key, just type the key that's one to the right of the letter P, the open bracket. Notice when I type the open bracket, all of the column headers, or in the terminology, the fields come up. We're going to sum our checking account balance, so all I have to do is double click checking, close up my brackets, so the key that's 2 to the right of the letter P, close up the brackets and hit enter, and now I've just summed all of my checking account balances. We can do other calculations outside the table as well. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top. So notice in our housing we have three options: own, rent, or other. Those are our three options. So I'd like to count how many own, how many rent, and how many are other. So in cell N3, I'm going to type the word own, O-W-N, with a capital O. Going to hit enter. In cell N4, I'm going to type rent, R-E-N-T. And then in cell N6, I'm going to type other. Now I'm going to click in cell O3. I'm going to scroll down to the right so you can see a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm going to type equals count if, and open the parentheses. In the range, I'm going to start typing my table. Notice when I type TA, table 1 comes up. So I'm going to double click where it says table 1. Now I'm going to click that open bracket again, so just to the right of the letter P, and notice all of my field headers come up. This time I want to count the housing, so I'm going to double click where it says housing, close up my brackets, type a comma. Now I'm in my criteria. I'm just going to click on cell N3, the word own, and close up my regular parentheses, shift and the number 0 to close up the parentheses. So now notice I'm counting column I, but I'm not using relative and absolute cell references, I'm using table references. So now I can hit enter, and I've counted how many people own, and I can click back on cell O3 and double click that fill handle, and I have now counted how many people rent and how many people are other. So as you can see, there are some very nice things that we can do with tables and table calculations. Now let's move on. That actually, even though we used the EX 3.10 worksheet tab, that was actually example 3.11. So let's move on to example 3.12, where we're going to sort data in the purchase orders database. So I'm going to click on example 3.12, EX 3.12. So I'm going to use my arrow buttons to the left to scroll and see more of my worksheet tabs. And I'm going to click on the EX 3.12 worksheet tab. Now, in the first thing we'd like to do is do a very simple sort. We're going to sort this in supplier order. So in order to sort this in supplier order, what we do not want to do is select column A. What happens is if we select column A, what's most likely going to happen is it's only going to sort column A and not keep it with the rest of the columns. So what you actually do is destroy the data. An example that I give my class, if I did something like that with your grading sheets and I just selected your names and did a sort, then what would happen is your grades would go to somebody else, which is not what you want to happen. So in order to do a sort, you don't want to select anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click any entry in column A because I want to sort by supplier. If I wanted to sort by item description, I would click any entry in column D. If I wanted to sort by order date, I would click on any entry in column I, but we're not going to select any part of the table. So I'm going to click any entry in column A. I'm just going to click cell A9 randomly, and then I'm going to click the Data tab. And notice I have an entire sort and filter group under the Data tab. Another place you can find this is if you click on the Home tab. All the way on the right in the Editing group, There's also a sort and filter button, but I'm going to click Data and go into the sort and filter group, and then we'll just click the Sort A to Z button. And notice we've now sorted the entire list in alphabetical order by supplier. Let's say we wanted to do a slightly more complicated sort. Let's say we wanted to sort it first by supplier and then by item description. So we wanted the item descriptions also in alphabetical order, but within the supplier. In order to do that, I'm going to click the Data tab, making sure to only click any cell within the list. It doesn't matter which cell I click. And I'm going to click the Sort button. So my first level is already there. I'm going to sort by supplier and in order A to Z. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add a Level, and notice our second level says Then By, and I'm going to sort by item description and also sort that A to Z and click OK. And notice within aluminum sheeting supplier, my airframe fasteners are first, then my bolt nut package, and then my control panels. So very easy to do sorts, but as I cannot stress enough times, when you're doing a sort, do not select any part of your table, do not select any part of your list, just select any cell within the list, and Excel will select the list automatically. Now let's move on to the last example that we're going to do in this video, example 3.13, where we're going to apply the Pareto principle. In the Pareto principle, what it says is that very few items will command a lot of your attention. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how many inventory items comprise a large percentage of our total inventory value. So if an inventory item comprises a very low percentage of our inventory value, we shouldn't really pay a lot of attention to it, but one that comprises a larger part of our inventory value, we should pay more attention to. So the first thing that we're going to do, making sure that you're on the EX 3.13 worksheet tab, we're going to calculate the inventory value by clicking in cell G4, and I'm going to tell Excel to multiply the purchase cost by the quantity on hand. So I'm going to type an equal sign, then click on cell C4, type an asterisk, and click on cell F4. So I'm going to put in the formula equals C4 multiplied by F4, hit enter, click back on cell G4, and then double click that fill handle in the bottom right hand corner to copy the formula all the way down to the bottom of the table. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sort this in inventory value from top inventory value to lowest inventory value. So we do not want column G selected. We'll click away from our selection and then click any value in column G. It doesn't matter which one as long as we click any value in column G. So now I'm going to click my home. In the editing group, I'm going to click sort and filter. But this time, I'm going to choose sort largest to smallest. So Z to A, largest to smallest. Click it, and I've now sorted my inventory value from largest to smallest. We're going to use the scroll bar to scroll down to the bottom of the list. We're going to sum up the total inventory value in cell G28. So I'm going to click in cell G28. I'm going to type an equal sign, and I'm going to type SUM. Open up the parentheses. Use my scroll bar to scroll up and select the range G4 to G27. Close up the parentheses and hit enter. An easier way to do that, I'll click on this cell and just hit the delete key. An easier way to do this is to just click in cell G28, the Home tab, in the editing group, just click Auto Sum. Notice it's chosen the correct range, G4 to G27, so all I have to do is hit enter to accept the sum. Now, to calculate the percentage of the inventory value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell H4, and I'm going to tell Excel to take each inventory value and divide it by the total inventory value. So to do that, making sure that I'm in cell H4, I'm going to type an equal sign, click on cell G4, /, use my scroll bar or my scroll wheel, scroll down, click on cell G28 that has my total, but before I click away, I'm going to click that F4 key on my keyboard. So notice by hitting the F4 key on my keyboard, I have now changed that reference from G28 to $G $28. So it'll change the first number, it'll change the number that I divide into, but I will not change the number that I divide by. So I hit enter to accept the formula. You could also just type the dollar signs. I'm going to click back on cell H4. I'm going to format the cell in percentage style, increase my decimal by 1, and then double click that fill handle to copy the percentage formula down. Now, to apply the Pareto principle, we're going to calculate the cumulative percentage. So what I'm going to tell Excel to do is I'm going to tell Excel to sum the percentages, to always start off at the first percentage, to always start off in cell H4, but to end the sum in the cell that is one to the left of the current one. In order to do that, I'm going to click in cell I4. I'm going to type equals SUM, open the parentheses. I'm going to click on H4 and then type a colon sign. Then close up my parentheses. Notice now I'm now summing H4 to H4, so if I copy it down, all I get is the same numbers, 11.2, 10.0, 9.8. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click within the first cell reference. It can be before the H, in between the H and the 4, or after the 4. I'm going to click between the first, in the first cell reference, I'm going to click between the H and the 4. And now I'm going to hit that F4 key on my keyboard once again, or I could type the dollar sign before the H and before the 4. So hit my F4 key. Notice my now summing $H $4 to H4. So I'm telling Excel to always start off at the first one, but to end at the one that's one to the left of the current. I hit enter to accept that formula. Click back on cell I4 and double click. What the Pareto analysis tells us is that when we get to our mountain, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so by the time we get to our 5th inventory item, we're all the way up to close to 50% of our inventory value. So notice all of the items that we have in inventory, but just 5 of them represent almost 50% of the total value. That's going to help us out a lot in inventory management.